hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. So,
Great. I connection for a bit, so I didn't
okay.
hear your question.
Okay, yeah, I was saying well, we have to connect virtually now, but it was good to see you physically at the Federal Capital Territory during that celebration of MSME Day.
It was great meeting you, and you were fantastic.
Thank you. So you deal with small businesses a lot. I know you're passionate about women, but we'll try to balance it up at this time. I'd like to talk to you, and one of your area of focus for Impact Her is market access. So we talk about funding, and yes, on Thursday we did talk about getting single-digit funding for small businesses. But I'd like for us to look at market access for small businesses. How much of a challenge is it for small businesses at this time?
Yeah, it is. It is a huge challenge for small businesses, especially when we're talking about utilizing the AFCTA, which was recently implemented, and it's in effect. Most of the small businesses still have challenges getting the right licenses to be able to export. Some of them don't even know. In fact, we surveyed over 3,000 women across different African countries, and we found out that only 1 in 4 women even were aware of the AFCTA. So then it sort of makes you ponder, how do they even utilize the benefit? So in addition to access to information, to getting licenses, funding comes in again, because you can't scale and you can't produce for the mass markets or enter into new markets or even new states without getting the access to capital that you need. So that's where a lot of SMEs still get, choke held because they feel stuck.
But some people say that the idea will always bring the funding. So the first thing should be information, access to information, and then that will bring the funding and the markets we're looking for.
I wish that was entirely the way it works, because if that was the case, we wouldn't have this $42 billion finance gap that we have in Africa. If just the idea and the information brought it, there are other practical issues that those women in these cases are facing. For example, the collateral requirements that I think we've talked over and over again, those traditional barriers or traditional forms that are needed are still not adequate to address this issue. In fact, we've had someone who has been waiting for the past month at the major Nigerian bank, waiting for her loan to be approved. She has the information, she has submitted the application, and this is one of the banks that talks about it's big on gender financing, right? But then we really can't get access. So as I've said before, availability of those funds doesn't equate to access. More needs to be done. And I think that is really time that the banks actually think about what are the practical realities of women SMEs in the country and try to match that with the products that they claim to be creating for women.
Yeah, but I mean, commercial banks will tell you they have to work with the regulation from central banks. They have to follow that guideline. So I guess the hope of small businesses only comes through such conversations that we had in Abuja on Thursday, where we see the Senior Special Assistant to the President on small businesses, on MSMEs, trying to create a platform of single-digit funding, and making that work would be the hope of small businesses.
That is correct. Making that work will be the hope, because you're absolutely right on that. A lot of those businesses, especially the women-led businesses, are quite, nervous about borrowing at double-digit interest rates, which makes sense, right? Like, how much are you going to produce to be able to pay that back? That becomes an issue. So we would hope that, as these conversations continue, we can find a path to be able to access single digits. And those single digits also require you borrowing from the right source, right? So if you're borrowing locally to go ahead to on land, getting a credit line locally to go ahead to on lend to small businesses, and you're almost getting it at 10%, that becomes a problem for you when you're loaning, because you also want to make some money on it, right? So it's also for those banks to ensure that they're going to the right sources as well, and be able to negotiate, maybe specifically in these cases for the gender case.
Yeah, well, I guess when we say single digit, they shouldn't say it's 9%, because that's also single digit, but that's almost 10%. Well, thank you so much, Efe Ukala, founder of Impact Her, for your work, and certainly we'll have future conversations on this.
Thank you so much for having me.